Lesson 11. The Trials and Executions of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. The Temple. During the French Revolution, the Temple Keep was a prison in Paris where members of the royal family, including King Louis XVI and his family, were held captive. The temple was located in Paris. It was originally a medieval fortress built by the Knights Templar in the 13th century and was later converted into a prison. During the French Revolution, the temple was repurposed as a prison to hold political prisoners, particularly members of the royal family. King Louis XVI, Queen Marie Antoinette, and their children were held there after the fall of the monarchy. After the French Revolution, the temple was used for various purposes, including as a military prison and a storage facility. The original medieval fortress was demolished in the 19th century, and the site is now occupied by the Square du Temple, a public park. Life for the royal family at the temple during the French Revolution was marked by confinement, isolation, and deteriorating conditions. The royal family, including King Louis XVI, Queen Marie Antoinette, and their children, were confined to small, sparsely furnished rooms in the temple. They were under constant surveillance and were not allowed any contact with the outside world. Initially, the royal family were held together in the temple. However, they were later separated. King Louis XVI was taken to the Concierge, another prison in Paris, where he was eventually tried and executed. Marie Antoinette and her children remained in the temple. Life in the temple was harsh for the royal family. They were subjected to strict security measures, denied many basic comforts. The rooms they were occupied were cold, damp, and lacking in proper sanitation. They were provided with meagre rations and had limited access to fresh air and exercise. The royal family was subjected to immense psychological strain during their time in the temple. They were constantly aware of the danger they faced and the uncertainty of their fate. They were subjected to verbal abuse and insults from the guards and occasionally from the crowds outside the prison. The royal family experienced a significant loss of privileges and decline in their standard of living. They went from being the rulers of France to prisoners, stripped of all their titles and authority. They had to adapt to a life of confinement and uncertainty. The trial of Louis XVI. The trial of Louis XVI was a significant event during the French Revolution. The trial took place from December 11, 1792 to January 20, 1793 and resulted in the conviction and execution of the former king. Louis XVI was charged with a variety of crimes, including treason against the French nation, conspiracy against the liberty of the people, and attempts to subvert the Republic. The trial was conducted by the National Convention, the revolutionary government that had replaced the monarchy. During the trial, Louis XVI was given the opportunity to defend himself. He argued that he had always acted in the best interests of the nation and that he had never intended to harm the French people. However, his defence was largely ineffective, as the revolutionaries were determined to hold him accountable for the perceived crimes of the monarchy. The trial was highly politicised, with the revolutionaries divided into different factions. The more radical factions, such as the Jacobins, were determined to see Louis XVI executed, while others advocated for a more lenient punishment, such as exile or imprisonment. On January 15, 1793, the National Convention voted on the fate of Louis XVI. The majority of the delegates voted for his execution, with 387 in favour and 334 against. Louis XVI was found guilty and sentenced to death by guillotine. On January 21, 1793, Louis XVI was executed in front of a large crowd in Paris. His execution marked a significant turning point and had profound consequences for the future of France and the monarchy. At the execution, he was brought to the Place de la Révolution, now known as the Place de la Concorde in Paris. He was accompanied by a priest and a few guards. A large crowd had gathered to witness the event. Louis XVI was led to the guillotine, a device used for executions during the French Revolution. He climbed the steps of the platform and was strapped to a board. The guillotine's blade was then released and swiftly decapitated him. After the execution, his body was taken away and buried in an unmarked grave in the Madeleine cemetery. His wife, Marie Antoinette, would also be executed by guillotine later that year. The execution of Louis XVI had significant repercussions both within France and internationally. It further polarised the revolutionaries and led to increased tensions with other European powers who saw the execution of a monarch as a threat to their own monarchies. The execution also marked a significant break in the Bourbon monarchy and the beginning of a new era in French history. The trial of Marie Antoinette. The trial of Marie Antoinette, the Queen Consort of Louis XVI, took place from October 14th to October 16th, 1793. She was charged with a range of crimes, including treason against the French nation, conspiracy against the Republic, and undermining the security of the state. The trial was conducted by the Revolutionary Tribunal, a court established by the revolutionary government to try individuals accused of counter-revolutionary activities. The trial was highly politicised and the outcome largely predetermined, as the revolutionaries were determined to hold Marie Antoinette accountable for her perceived crimes as queen. During the trial, Marie Antoinette was given the opportunity to defend herself. She denied the charges against her and maintained her innocence. However, her defence was largely ineffective, as the revolutionaries were determined to see her convicted and executed. Once she realised her arguments and defensive statements would be ignored, she had the grace and dignity to close her mouth and refuse to speak any more. On October 16, 1793, Marie Antoinette was found guilty and sentenced to death by guillotine. The sentence was carried out the following day, on October 17th, at the Place de la Révolution in Paris. Marie was accompanied by a priest and a few guards. A large crowd had gathered to witness the event. Marie Antoinette was led to the guillotine, where she climbed the steps of the platform and was strapped to the same board her husband had been strapped to. The blade fell and it was over for her. After the execution, her body was taken away and buried in another unmarked grave in the Madeleine cemetery. The execution of Marie Antoinette marked the end of the monarchy in France for a time and further solidified the radicalism and violence of the French Revolution. The execution also symbolised the end of an era and the beginning of a new era in French history. The guillotine. The guillotine is a device used for carrying out executions by beheading. It consists of a tall, upright frame with a weighted blade that is suspended at the top. The blade is released and falls rapidly, severing the head of the person being executed. The guillotine was invented in the late 18th century by the French physician named Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotin. It was initially intended as a more humane method of execution compared to other methods used at the time, such as hanging or the use of the sword. The guillotine was designed to be quick and efficient, causing minimal suffering from the person being executed. The guillotine became closely associated with the French Revolution, as it was used extensively during the period to carry out the executions of those deemed enemies of the revolution. It was seen as a symbol of the revolutionaries' radicalism and its commitment to equality before the law, as it provided a standardised method of execution. The use of the guillotine during the French Revolution reached its peak during the Reign of Terror, a period of intense political repression and mass executions. Thousands of people were executed by guillotine during this time. After the French Revolution, the guillotine continued to be used as a method of execution in France until 1977, when capital punishment was abolished. The last execution by guillotine in France took place on the 10th of September 1977. The guillotine had become an enduring symbol of the French Revolution and its radicalism. It's often associated with the excesses and the violence of the revolution, and its use has been the subject of much debate and controversy. Today, the guillotine is primarily seen as a historical artefact and a reminder of a dark period in French history.